Hello bookworms! Today I'm going to be doing another wrap-up video. I'm going to be wrapping up books 31 through 35 that I have read recently. I'm slightly behind on wrap-ups, but I also had a slower reading month in March, so it kind of works out because now I had time to catch up with filming these videos before I can launch into my next set of wrapping things up. So the 31st book that I read this year is Half the World by Joe Abercrombie. This is the second book in the Shattered Sea series, and I really enjoyed it. I do think that I liked the first book a little bit more than I liked the second one, because the second one ended up being a bit more of, not necessarily a companion novel. It definitely furthers the story of the first book, but it really focuses on two different characters. And I think what I loved so much about the first book was Yarvi and his sarcasm. And while he is present in this book, he just doesn't play as large of a role. We follow a new female protagonist named Thorn, and I really did enjoy her story and her character arc. So just like the first book, the plot moves along extremely quickly. It is a high fantasy novel, but it is really not that long. It's so quick to get through, so quick paced, and you just find yourself blowing through the pages. I think also why I love this trilogy so much is because I am really invested in the politics of this world. I still have to read the third book and complete the trilogy, but there was definitely a ton of setup that happened within this book. So I think that everything's just gonna kind of come to a head and explode in the third book. So I'm really looking forward to reading that one very soon. I did definitely enjoy the latter half of this book more than the beginning, but overall I thought that it was a really good follow-up to Half a King, and I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. Then I read The Trials of Morrigan Crow, Nevermoor #1 by Jessica Townsend, and I'm not sure how many books are going to be in this series, but I am hoping that it'll be 7, kind of like the Harry Potter books, because this book was so absolutely incredible. It's a middle grade book, and it follows a girl named Morrigan who is cursed, and she is just blamed every single time that something horrible happens within her town. No matter what it is, somehow people find a way to tie it back to her, and her dad has her write all of these apology letters at the end of every month, and it's only because her birthday is on this one day called Eventide, which is a cursed day. Morgan is not expected to live longer than about, I want to say it was 9 years old. Something happens and she ends up getting swept away by this eccentric man named Jupiter North and taken to this really cool hotel where she is being prepared to go through all of these trials and become a member of the Wondrous Society. It's so magical and so wonderful, and I read this book, I was so invested in it and I couldn't put it down. From the first chapter, I just felt completely hooked. I really loved Jupiter North. He was really fascinating, and he's ginger, and he was just so great and so amusing. So it kind of reminded me of Harry Potter a little bit, just because it was this cool, different, unusual world, and everything just had this sense of specialness to it. So it was really fun to discover things along with Morgan as she was learning about this world. There were a lot of things that were kind of nonsensical, and Jupiter can sometimes evade certain questions and speak a little bit in riddles, and it was just really, really fun. And I really loved seeing Morgan explore this hotel and make some friends and some enemies. And the whole competition kind of reminded me a little bit of the Triwizard Tournament, except on a much larger scale. I can't wait to read the next book. As you may know, I love Christmas, and there were 2 Christmas chapters in this book, so that also had me just over the moon with excitement. I thought everything about this was so good, and I really strongly urge you to go and get this book if you have not read it yet. This was just such a surprise for me. Came totally out of left field. I was not expecting to have as strong of feelings about this book as I do, but I really want to already reread it because I really loved it that much. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars, clearly, if you can't tell from all of my raving. Then I read Anne of Avonlea by Ellen Montgomery. This is the second book in the Anne of Green Gables series, and I was really excited to read this one, especially as we're finally like coming into the spring season, because Anne is just so, like, the way that Ellen Montgomery describes nature and everything just gets me like so excited. And there were so many like flowers, and I was just like, yes, spring and greenery, and just like tell me more about this beautiful setting. So I was really happy to be back on Prince Edward Island and to follow Anne once again. Anne is a little bit more mature in this book than she was in the first one, but she definitely has not lost her sense of adventure or her wild imagination, which is really what drew me to her as a character to begin with. So I was so happy to see things through her eyes once again. I just love seeing the progression of her story. I loved being immersed within the nature of Avonlea once again, and I really liked the two new characters that were introduced within this one. In this book, Anne becomes a teacher, and witnessing her teaching methods is just delightful, and the relationship that she has with some of the students and just her personal beliefs about how teaching should be done. I thought it was such a pleasure. I definitely enjoyed the first book better, but I still found this one to be really delightful, and I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. Then I don't have a physical copy of this book, but I read Young Jane Young by Gabrielle Zevin, and this is an adult book, and it follows a girl. Actually, it's told in a couple of different perspectives, but the main plot of the story is that there's this girl who had physical relations with a congressman, and after that is revealed, she's the one that has to deal with all of the fallout, and he kind of just gets to go on living his life and being a congressman and, you know, just be totally back to normal, while she is forever seen as this harlot that seduced this congressman, and she can't find a job, and she has a really difficult time just living life after this situation. But really, he should have equal blame because it takes two people to have an affair and do that kind of stuff. So I really love the way that the story was told. As I said before, there were a couple of different perspectives that we followed, but I don't want to spoil exactly who it is that we hear from, because you'll see why if you decide to read the book. I thought it was really enjoyable. The book was very feminist, and it talked a lot about the kinds of things that women have to deal with versus what men have to deal with, and just how it's really not fair. I felt like her writing style just really clicked with me. I ended up reading it really, really quickly, and I definitely want to pick up her other book, The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery. I've had that on my shelf for so long, and now after reading this book, I definitely plan on going back and reading that book as well. So I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. And then next on my list, I kind of was debating whether I wanted to include DNFs in my wrap-ups, but I decided that I do, because you guys should know, like, I mean, I did invest time in reading something. I'm gonna do it depending on how much of it I read, but this next book that I decided not to finish is called The French Girl. It's by Lexi Elliott, and I read 40% of the book, so I read almost half of it. I feel like I've read enough that I am confident in why I didn't like it and why I can share that with you, and why I don't think that it was gonna get better if I kept on reading. So I picked up this book under the assumption that it is an adult thriller novel. I was in the mood for something really quick-paced, something with action, and this book just could not have been further from that. It follows a group of friends who all went to Oxford together, and they spent this summer on the French countryside, and there was a girl who was the next door neighbor that was a French girl, and she ended up disappearing the day that they were leaving. Now it is 10 years later, and the same group of friends all finds themselves in London at the same time, and it turns out that the body of this girl has just been discovered. So now the French investigator is coming back to interview all of them, despite them having gone through this 10 years ago. All of them seem to have an alibi, and they're all kind of convinced that she disappeared after they left, but there is like new evidence that's arising. So it sounds like it would be good, right? But it really just was so boring and so slow to me. The main character is kind of getting like haunted by the girl that's missing, but not in a creepy or exciting way. Like, she'll be in scenes with people, and then all of a sudden she'll be like, oh, and then the girl was standing over there, and then like chapter ends, and you're just like, okay, I felt nothing from that. The whole book takes place in the present day, and from what I read until, there are no flashbacks to the past, so you're not even getting like that excitement of seeing maybe what happened. And I guess that also is because all of them have alibis. But then also weirdly, like, this French investigator is coming and interviewing them, but none of them seem that concerned that he is there, and it's also not even officially said that they're like definitely suspects, but he just keeps asking them questions, and they're kind of like, oh, it's annoying that he's like questioning us again. So I just really, like, I felt no excitement, and I was like, I could keep reading this. I have a feeling I know what kind of direction it's gonna go in, but I just don't care enough about what's going on in the present. I don't care why this girl and her boyfriend broke up 10 years ago and that they still can't see each other, and I like didn't care about any of the characters. I don't care why this other girl disappeared. And yeah, I'm just trying to be a lot stricter with stopping reading books that I'm not enjoying. If there's something that I'm not drawn to, that I'm not immediately picking up, then I'm not going to continue to waste my time on it in the hopes that it will get better, because I read for fun, and that is one of my like goals of this year, that I want to get really good at DNFing books that I'm just not enjoying. So this was the first one this year that I just decided to give up on, and I feel really good about the decision. And I have watched a couple of other reviews of this book since I have given up on it, and it doesn't sound like it got better. So I'm good with this decision. So I won't give it a star rating because I didn't finish it, but I imagine that it would be around a 1 to 2 star if I did finish reading it. So those are all of the books that I'm going to be talking about within this wrap up. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you will pick up Nevermoor because it's so good. And yeah, and let me know what you think of it, if you already have read it or if you read it after seeing this video. But that is all that I have for now, and I will see you guys soon in a new video. Bye!